can I make the case for why we should read books? It's a strange question for me because for my whole life, books have been the greatest thing that ever happened to me. If I didn't have books, I would be so miserable. It's such an enjoyable experience. But think about it this way. You live in your head with your own thoughts, right? And if you had printed out one day, if somebody printed out on paper what your thoughts were for a week, you'd be astonished at how boring and how trivial and how meaningless they are. The same thoughts recurring over and over and over and over again. The same stupid resentments and things that bother you, etc. Your mind is going in these circles, round and round and round and round and round. Your world is very limited. I'm sorry, it's not a mystery. I know it for a fact because we're all like that, okay? You live in a city with particular culture. You see the same people every day. You see the same TV shows every day or the same podcasts every day. It's a very narrow, limited world, and you are suffering from it. I'm sorry to say, it's making you suffer. A book takes you out of your world. It is an adventure. You get to travel to ancient Rome and be there with Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, as he's trying to figure out how to manage his own life and his own problems. You get to go to ancient Greece and be there during the Peloponnesian War. You get to see ancient Egypt and all the strange things going on. You get to go to Renaissance Italy and hang out with Leonardo da Vinci. You get to follow Napoleon Bonaparte in his battlefields. You get exposed to these ideas of people that are not your ideas, that are interesting, that are weird, that are strange. You get to expose yourself to theories and to things from other cultures that are almost like from another planet. They're going to open your mind. It's like taking a trip. It's like being able to travel. It's like getting out of your own little world, your own little apartment, and seeing the world, seeing history, seeing who you are. Okay? You are not a creature of today. You are not a creature that was born for like the year 2000. I don't know when you were born, right? That's not the world. The world existed 10,000 years before you. Your thoughts and your ideas are not your own. You have inherited them from your parents, from your culture, from centuries of history. You want to ground yourself in that reality, in that past. Because if you ignore history, if you ignore books, and all the lessons that they have, then your world is just going to get narrower and narrower and narrower and narrower. You're not going to be creative, you're going to be frustrated, and bad things will happen to you. Books are the greatest adventure in the world, and I can't personally understand how, if I can't read a book, if I had to go a month without reading a book, I would literally lose my mind, right? Of course, it's an addiction, which isn't so great. You want to build that addiction. That's probably the best addiction that you can have, okay? So if you want, someday I will post, as I will, as we have on my newsletter, lists of books that you can read that are truly exciting, that will lift you, that will give you these experiences that I'm talking about. But please, I beg you, I implore you, we need more people who are reading books today in the world right now. How does one accept oneself if they're not successful yet? And how do you accept who you are in the moment, even if you're struggling right now? The thing is, it's not success that's so important in this world, to me at least. The feeling that I think we should aim for is a feeling of fulfillment, such as I had dreams when I was a child, things I wanted to accomplish, things I believe I am capable of accomplishing. And I haven't given up on that, and I'm still struggling to reach some of those goals, and I'm on my way. When you're in your 20s, it's easier to have that belief because there's still time, and vistas of time ahead of you. And even if you've made some mistakes or had some bad jobs, you can still hope for that. It gets harder and harder as you get into your 30s and your 40s to believe that when you have followed the wrong paths in life and you have a sense of, God, things aren't going right, I'm not going to have the success that I wanted. I know personally, I was 37, 38 before I got a chance to write the 48 Laws of Power, which is very late in life, and I got very depressed by that, but I never gave up on myself. So the thing that you want is you don't want to give up on your dreams, on your hopes for the future, because that will age you very quickly, and that will have cascading effects on your health, both mentally and physically. Now, if you're in your 60s and you're at that point, it's a little harder, but there's still things you can do. There's still things you can accomplish. You've had incredible experiences. Perhaps you've raised some children. Perhaps you've have some adventures. Maybe you could write a book. Maybe you could mentor people and teach people. But you want to have a feeling like you're aiming towards something, that your life has a purpose and a goal and a meaning to it. There's a very great book that many people have recommended and I've recommended called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And basically, he was put in a concentration camp, I believe Auschwitz, the worst circumstances any human being can ever imagine. And he emerged from that as a psychotherapist with a form of therapy called logotherapy. And he noticed that the people who survived the most horrible circumstances a human being could ever be put into were those who had some reason to stay alive, some project they wanted to do, something that they wanted to accomplish. They wanted to stay alive for their family that was still not in a camp. They wanted to stay alive because they knew they had some great discovery that they were, or a book that they were going to write. And they had a purpose and a goal and a feeling of meaning, even within all the suffering. So if you're struggling and you're suffering, you can't give up. You can't just resign yourself to it. You can't just say, that's just my life. I've just got to accept it. No, you've got to have some hope. You've got to have a goal. You have to feel like there is some purpose to what I'm going through, and I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to aim for it. I'm going to have a goal. I'm going to have a purpose, and that will give you energy. And that will get you out of any rut that you're in, because a lot of the ruts and the feelings of inadequacy are created by the fact that you're not doing something, you're not active, you're not attempting things. At some point in life, you're just struggling too much and things don't look very good. How do you accept that? You have to accept the fact that being alive is like this insane privilege, and you are alive and you are breathing. And there are people in this world who are doing worse than you are. I have moments where I feel very almost self-pity for my stroke, but then I think of all the people around the world who have it so much worse than I do. You know, I have a house, I have a comfortable living. I can't feel sorry for myself. So think of the people who have it much worse than you do, that there is something beautiful about your life, about being alive, and kind of returning to some of the simple pleasures. You know, one of the simplest pleasures that anyone can have is either with their children, or for me, with pets and animals and cats and dogs, and just being around them and just observing how weird and strange they are, and to be living with another species in your house. Every day I look at my cat, who's right there on the floor next to us, and I'm just amazed that I get the privilege of spending time with this animal. So finding these kind of simple things that you still have can help you in no matter how horrible your circumstances are. So those would be kind of the advice I would give to people on that. How do you overcome being a perfectionist? It's particularly relevant because I happen to suffer from that particular mental illness, and it causes me a lot of discomfort and a lot of pain, because I'm writing a book right now. If it doesn't feel perfect, if it doesn't feel exactly what I want, I drive myself crazy, and I spend weeks suffering and going over and over and over again. And it's not healthy. It has a good element to it in that it forces me to make things continually better. But at some point you have to realize that you're never going to reach that perfection, a thing that's going to completely satisfy you, and you have to let go of it. And so for me, it's a matter of accepting the fact that I have limits and kind of relaxing my spirit. So a lot of that perfectionism is a kind of anxiety. And this might sound strange, but you're actually anxious about finishing something, because when you finish something, you often have to confront a feeling of emptiness, like, oh, what's next? It's because this project kind of consumes you. And if you never really finish, if you always have to keep working on it, you never have to experience it. So sometimes I have to realize that it's flawed, and that's okay, and I've finished with it and just put it behind me. But the other thing is, sometimes things that aren't perfect are actually better, are actually kind of more interesting. So if something you've written is actually so perfect and polished, it can have a kind of an emptiness to it, like it's too good, it's too worked over, it lost its spirit. Sometimes when things are kind of imperfect, they're a little bit flawed, they're not finished exactly, they feel more human, they feel more alive. So realizing that your perfectionism is kind of killing the spirit of what you're doing can make you realize that it's sometimes better just leave things slightly unfinished. But another form of perfectionism that I've noticed is in dealing with other people. So I remember a person who was the CEO of the company that I was on the board of directors for. He had to micromanage everything going on in the company because he couldn't stand the mistakes other people were making. He had to be in charge of everything. And from what I read, Elon Musk suffers a bit from this debility. It makes people micromanagers. And it's actually makes for very inferior work because, first of all, perfectionism exhausts you. It wears you out very quickly. You become burnt out, like I have on several times. And so trying so hard, you end up losing your energy and making all kinds of stupid mistakes. And so this person, it's ended up, it's kind of like Elon Musk, had started this project that was going really poorly. It was badly thought out. His solution was to go live in the factory that he was actually trying to build and work on it night and day and try and fix it until he completely exhausted himself and made a total mess of things. So trying to make everybody else do exactly what you need and what you want is a terrible form of perfectionism. And what you want instead is to be able to delegate and to be able to accept that people have different opinions, that not everything you do and think about is the right answer. But at the root of perfectionism is a kind of anxiety. It's a feeling almost in your stomach, like, I've got to work, I've got to get this better. And you have to be able to overcome that anxiety that's at the root of it. You have to be